Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
In this deep dive, we're going to take a deep dive into the career of Satya Nadella.
Yeah.
Really kind of dissect his rise from, Microsoft engineer to the helm of this tech giant.
Right.
We'll be exploring, all the strategic decisions that have come to define his tenure and, of course, his influence on, really, the very fabric of the tech industry as a whole.
Yeah, it's a fascinating study when you think about it. We're talking about a period of just immense change in technology, right?
Yeah.
The rise of cloud computing, the explosion of AI, and Nadella hasn't just, navigated these shifts. He's been often the one kind of charting the course.
He really has. So let's rewind all the way back to the beginning. Nadella's journey starts in Hyderabad, India,
Yeah.
1967. And what I find so interesting about his upbringing is this real juxtaposition.
Yes.
You have his mother, a scholar of Sanskrit,
Right.
and his father, very much entrenched in the world of civil service.
Yeah, it really speaks to a breadth of influence from a young age. And you see that, I think, reflected in his own path. That early fascination with science and technology leads him to pursue a bachelor's in electrical engineering from Manipal Institute of Technology, graduates in 1988.
Doesn't stop there.
No.
He's got the bug, moves to the United States, earns a master's in computer science from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee in 1990. And to top it all off, an MBA from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business.
It's that combination, right? You have that deep technical expertise, but interwoven with this really sharp business acumen. And it's a recurring motif you see throughout his entire career. And it's on full display, of course, once he joins Microsoft in 1992.
Right after a very brief stint at Sun Microsystems, he begins his Microsoft journey as an engineer in the Windows NT division. And really no surprise, given his talent, he quickly ascends through the ranks there.
His ability to not just grasp, I think, these complex technical concepts, but to then translate that into tangible business value, it was critical. And I think you see that think back to some of those early projects that he was involved in, like Windows Server, absolutely pivotal for Microsoft's expansion into enterprise computing. That's Nadella putting all those skills into practice.
Right, and that deep understanding of the enterprise space
Yeah.
becomes even more important later on as he takes the helm of the server and tools division.
A division that, under his watch, undergoes explosive growth, becomes a multi-billion-dollar business. And I would argue this is where we see the seeds of Microsoft's future really being sown. Nadella's fingerprints are all over the development of Microsoft Azure, which, as we know, becomes the bedrock of their cloud computing strategy.
Which leads us to 2014, a watershed moment. Steve Ballmer steps down, and Satya Nadella becomes the CEO of Microsoft.
It was a time of really seismic shifts in the technological landscape. Mobile devices were rapidly reshaping expectations. Cloud computing was no longer this fringe concept. This was the future. And Microsoft, despite its size and influence, was not immune to these disruptive forces.
And Nadella recognized the urgency of the situation.
Yeah.
He understood that this wasn't just about tweaking a product line here or there. This demanded a fundamental transformation of Microsoft's very DNA.
It was a two-pronged challenge. How do you reposition Microsoft strategically within this rapidly evolving tech ecosystem? But then at the same time, how do you overhaul their internal culture to foster the kind of agility and innovation that they were going to need to thrive in this new world?
And this is where we see him introduce the concept of a growth mindset.
And not just introduce it, but really embed it into the fabric of the company. This wasn't about being superficially nicer or anything like that. It was about dismantling the silos and that hyper-competitiveness.
Yeah.
That, in some ways, had become detrimental to the company.
Because on the surface, I think some people might misinterpret that as softening Microsoft's edge.
When in reality, it was about cultivating an environment where calculated risk-taking was encouraged, where diverse perspectives were valued, where that capacity to learn from setbacks was absolutely paramount. This wasn't just about being good. It was about positioning Microsoft as an enabler, a company that was invested in empowering others to achieve more. It's a powerful narrative shift.
And this cultural metamorphosis really went hand in hand with this strategic vision, what he famously termed cloud first, mobile first.
A bold declaration. It signaled a departure from that traditional Windows-centric worldview that had defined Microsoft for so long. It was an acknowledgement that the future was about interconnectedness, it was about mobility, and it was about leveraging the power of the cloud.
And at the heart of that new direction was, of course, Microsoft Azure.
Right, no longer simply a project within Microsoft, but under Nadella. Azure is positioned as the cornerstone of their enterprise cloud solutions. And again, it's not just about providing raw computing power, it's about offering businesses a comprehensive ecosystem, scalable infrastructure, a suite of cloud-native services, a platform designed to underpin their digital transformations.
And he didn't stop at just providing the infrastructure. He pushed for this deep integration of Microsoft's existing software and services.
Right, it was about meeting businesses where they were.
Yeah,
He understood that businesses, many of whom were already deeply embedded in the Microsoft ecosystem, think Office 365, Dynamics, Power BI, they needed a seamless transition to the cloud.
of course.
And for those who weren't already using Microsoft products, well, Azure was suddenly a much more compelling option. It was about creating this unified experience.
Right. And that strategy extended to their revenue model as well. That
Mhm.
moved toward subscription-based services with Azure. This wasn't just about keeping the lights on. This was about generating predictable, recurring income and really strengthening their position in the market.
And the results, frankly, speak for themselves. I mean, Azure's rapid ascent to becoming one of the leading cloud platforms globally, going toe-to-toe with giants like Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, it cemented Microsoft's place in this new digital age.
Absolutely. It was a definitive statement. This wasn't just about catching a technological wave. It was about riding that wave and almost dictating its direction.
Hmm.
And I think a big part of that direction, and you can't talk about Nadella without talking about this, is his focus on artificial intelligence.
And it's here, I think, where his approach gets really, really interesting. We're bombarded, right, with all these narratives about AI replacing human jobs, sparking all these anxieties about obsolescence. But Nadella's vision, at least as this profile presents it, is much more nuanced than that. It's about augmentation, not replacement.
Yeah, it's about harnessing that power to amplify human capabilities, to solve these complex problems, to really drive innovation in ways, frankly, that we haven't even imagined yet. And that's reflected, I think, in his actions, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Consider, for example, just the initiative to develop Microsoft AI. An expansive endeavor encompasses everything from the conversational AI of Cortana to AI-powered solutions tailored for something like the healthcare industry.
Right, and then there's the partnership with OpenAI, which has
Yeah.
captured a lot of attention, and for good reason.
Yeah, a strategic alliance that has yielded really remarkable results. And I think what Nadella recognized was the groundbreaking work that was being done by OpenAI and made, I think, the crucial decision to make Azure their exclusive cloud platform, which was a win-win. OpenAI gained access to this massive computing power that they desperately needed, and Microsoft got a front row seat to observe, learn from this cutting-edge AI research.
And from that partnership, these technologies like ChatGPT emerge, which have undeniably captured, really, the public imagination.
Right, and technologies that Nadella has been, I think, very deliberate about integrating into the Microsoft ecosystem. You see it with the inclusion of ChatGPT in products like Teams and Office. And again, it goes back to that philosophy of augmentation. These language models aren't intended to replace human interaction. They're tools to enhance communication, automate tasks, potentially even spark new avenues of creativity.
But I think he also understood that for AI to reach its full potential, it couldn't be this walled garden accessible only to these tech giants and these elite researchers.
Exactly, which brings us to the development of platforms like Azure Machine Learning. Cognitive services. These tools were designed from the ground up to empower businesses of all sizes to develop and deploy their own AI solutions. It's about democratizing access to these incredibly powerful technologies.
Right. It's about saying, look, the future is going to be built with AI, and we're giving you the tools to do it, regardless of your size, regardless of your technical expertise.
And in doing so, they're potentially unleashing this wave of innovation across industries, enabling solutions to problems that have long seemed insurmountable.
Yeah, it really is this fascinating paradox, this potential for AI to be both profoundly disruptive and incredibly empowering at the same time.
Absolutely, and I think it's that tension that Nadella seems to navigate so skillfully.
And of course, we can't talk about Nadella's leadership without talking about the strategic acquisitions. And it does seem like each one has been meticulously chosen to address a specific strategic objective, wouldn't you say?
Without a doubt. Take, for instance, the acquisition of LinkedIn back in 2016, a $26.2 billion investment. That, on the surface, gave Microsoft access to this vast professional network.
But it was much more than just the network itself. It was about the data, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. LinkedIn sits on this treasure trove of data, professional connections, career trajectories, skills endorsements, data that, when analyzed effectively, could provide invaluable insights into the modern workforce.
and insights that, of course, could be used to refine their existing products,
Mhm.
identify new market opportunities, and ultimately solidify Microsoft's position as really a leader in that enterprise space.
Precisely. But LinkedIn was just one piece of the puzzle. Let's not forget the acquisition of GitHub in 2018 for $7.5 billion.
Yeah, and that was a particularly interesting move given Microsoft's, at times, contentious relationship with open source software.
It was a clear signal that Nadella was not afraid to break from the past and to acknowledge, really, the shifting landscape of software development. GitHub, for those unfamiliar, is where developers go to collaborate, to share code, to essentially build the software that powers our world.
Yeah, it's the backbone.
It was a recognition of the power of community, of the open source ethos that was quickly becoming the bedrock of innovation in the age of cloud computing and AI.
Absolutely.
And it was a strategic masterstroke, frankly. By acquiring GitHub, Microsoft didn't just gain access to this massive code repository. They gained access to a vibrant, highly engaged community of developers.
Yeah, it was a way to deepen that talent pool,
Yeah.
strengthen their relationships with developers worldwide, and gain, invaluable insights into these emerging trends in software development.
And then in 2021, there was the acquisition of Nuance Communications for a cool $19.7 billion.
And this one really felt laser-focused on bolstering those AI capabilities,
Yeah,
particularly in the healthcare space.
precisely. I mean, Nuance was and is a leader in speech recognition and natural language processing. Technologies that are absolutely critical in the healthcare industry. Think medical transcription, clinical documentation, patient engagement, areas that are just ripe for transformation through AI.
It wasn't just about acquiring technology, it was about acquiring expertise, deep expertise, in a sector that is notoriously complex, highly regulated, but also, I think, ripe for innovation.
And then, of course, the mega deal, the one that dominated headlines, the acquisition of Activision Blizzard in 2022 for an eye-watering $68.7 billion.
A bold move, to say the least. It really signaled, I think, a very clear intention to become a major player in the world of gaming, and of course the metaverse.
Two sectors that are experiencing just explosive growth, and that Nadella clearly sees as these key battlegrounds for the future of computing.
Yeah, they're betting big.
And Activision Blizzard brought with it some of the most iconic gaming franchises globally: Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Candy Crush. It instantly gave Microsoft this massive footprint in the gaming landscape.
Right, a huge, almost instant user base.
It was a bold bet on the metaverse, a concept that was gaining a lot of traction at the time, and that, many believe will fundamentally change the way we interact with technology, the way we interact with each other.
Of course, it was a deal that faced its fair share of scrutiny from regulators.
As any deal of that magnitude would. But it speaks to, I think, Nadella's willingness to be audacious, to place these big bets on his vision of the future. He's not just waiting for the future to arrive, he's actively shaping it. Through these strategic acquisitions, through bold investments in research and development, and through this leadership style that, at its core, encourages innovation at every level.
It's interesting, right? These bets extend beyond the corporate boardroom.
Mm-hmm.
This profile really highlights Nadella's personal commitment to philanthropy,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I think often in the tech world can feel a little,
Right.
performative.
Yeah.
But here it feels very genuinely rooted in his values.
Yeah, and it's a side of him that I think resonates, at least with me, very deeply. He and his wife, Anu, have been particularly engaged in supporting causes related to education, disability, and children's health.
Which are, I would imagine,
Yeah,
deeply personal areas for him.
they are. And Nadella has spoken very candidly about, the joys and the complexities of raising a son with cerebral palsy. And I think those experiences have very clearly shaped his worldview, his understanding of the human impact of technology, and certainly his approach to philanthropy.
Because it's one thing to talk about, leveraging technology for good. It's another thing entirely to really put your resources, your time, your energy where your mouth is. And Nadella, it seems, is doing both.
He is. He's walking the walk, and that matters. I think it adds a real layer of authenticity to his leadership, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's a leadership style that he explores in depth in his book, Hit Refresh, which was published back in 2017.
It's a fascinating read, and not just some,
Yeah.
dry business memoir, but it's a really thoughtful reflection on his life, his leadership philosophy, the evolution of his thinking.
He delves into that cultural transformation that he spearheaded at Microsoft, his perspective on the role of empathy and leadership, which we've talked about, and really his belief in the power of continuous learning, not just for individuals, but for these massive organizations.
Right, and it's a theme that runs throughout his entire career, right? This constant adaptation, this recognition that the moment you think you've got it all figured out, you've already fallen behind.
Which is an incredibly valuable insight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one that resonates, I think, far beyond just the tech industry. It's about intellectual humility, right?
Mm-hmm.
That willingness to admit that you don't have all the answers, and the commitment to keep seeking them out.
And it's that very humility, I think, that makes him such an effective leader. He's not threatened by dissenting opinions. He seeks them out.
Yeah.
Because he understands that the best solutions, the most innovative ideas, they often emerge from the collision of different perspectives.
Right. It's about fostering an environment where people feel empowered to speak their minds,
Yeah.
to challenge the status quo, to take those calculated risks
Exactly.
without fear of reprisal.
And that, I think, is the essence of Nadella's leadership legacy.
A legacy that's still being written, of course, but it's clear he's had a profound impact, not just on Microsoft, not just on the tech industry, but I think on the way we think about this intersection of technology and humanity.
He's shown us that technological prowess, business acumen, and a deep sense of social responsibility, they're not mutually exclusive. In fact, they can be this incredibly powerful force for progress when they're combined effectively.
It's a potent reminder, I think, that the future is not this thing that just sort of happens to us. It's something we build collectively through the choices that we make, the values that we prioritize, and frankly, the leaders we choose to follow.
And Satya Nadella, I think, through his actions, through his decisions, his vision for this more equitable and innovative future, has undoubtedly earned his place among the architects of that future.
It's been a fascinating exploration of his journey, his impact, his enduring legacy. And as always, we hope you found this deep dive into the world of Satya Nadella as illuminating as we have.
Indeed. It's a story with, I think, valuable lessons for anyone navigating the complexities of leadership, innovation, and this ever-evolving relationship between technology and society.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.